You've been sold a lie when it comes to building your dream body. You've been convinced your entire life that you just need to restrict harder, you need to eat less, you need to be more disciplined, you need to move more, you need to outdo this calorie energy balance that you've been running from your entire life. And that's just not the case. And I'm somebody that in the last few years has helped over 1,000 people eat more food to lose more fat through understanding the basic principles, which I'm going to explain to you now. So if you have found yourself stuck in this cycle where you're constantly restricting, you're constantly tracking every single calorie that goes in your mouth, and it seems endless and you're not getting yourself any closer, this video is for you. Okay, so whenever it comes to the idea that we need to starve ourselves to lose more fat, I always like to propose these two words for people. Because you can either be nourishing your body or punishing. And it's really key that we look at this not only on a physiological level, we look at the metabolic effect of this, but we also understand this on a nervous system and a psychological level as well. Because this process is very much mind, body, spirit. You know, we fail to see that our body is actually just a manifestation of our inner reality. Our thoughts quite literally do become things. And your body is not an exception to that. Your body is quite literally just a walking bit of feedback for your inner belief system, which has curated it in the first place. Okay, so we're going to break this down. Now, you've got two ways in which you can get to where you want to get to, but one is always inevitably going to get you there and one's going to fail, okay? So, nourishment. Now, what does nourishment look like? It looks like a diet that is balanced and fulfilling. You know, we see movement as training and not just exercise, and not this mechanism for us to burn calories. Not everything is about calories. It's my least favorite thing to talk about. And we really prioritize our well-being over the results in which we get. You know, and fitness has been largely misconstrued now, and that we think that it's all about just willpower. It's about early mornings, late nights. It's about grit, determination. But that's not going to work. And when you understand that through the energetic balance in which I'm going to run you through on a nervous system level, you're going to understand why your previous approach of punishment doesn't work. So on the other hand of things, you've got punishing yourself, which is probably where you are right now. Now, this involves heavy restriction. So you're constantly managing your calories. You know, you kind of view food as this, I need to get my calories lower. I need to suppress what I'm eating as much as possible. You know, you aren't worried about the macros, and all you're worried about is, you know, how little caloric intake you can take in. It often looks like high output. It looks like you're just moving for the sake of burning calories to lose fat. You know, you're not too concerned about building muscle or changing or doing anything. You're just concerned about what that number on your watch says and how many calories you burn for the day, and trying to get that balance as low as possible. And shame cycles, which we will get into, because again, that links to the energy side of things massively. So I want to talk about the punishment side of things on a nervous system level, a metabolic level, and obviously a psychological level. And we can compare that with nourishment. And then this is hopefully going to help you understand that this is not just as simple as the way in which you've been taught to believe your entire life. And one thing that I would propose a question to you right now is, if your belief is true, then why aren't you there? And this is always a question in which you have to ask yourself, okay? Because what I do is I break people's beliefs down on a psychological, on a subconscious level to change the results in which they're manifesting, okay? So this is what I'm going to pose that question to you. So let's look at things on a metabolic effect first, because this is the easiest thing for us to understand, because we all understand physiology, you understand hormones, you understand how your metabolism works, and I will explain through this video if you don't. So the metabolic effect of heavy restriction, high output through punishment is heavy restriction, that this balance of trying to punish your body will lead to a downregulation of your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate. Now, the first lie which you're going to face in this entire video is that your BMR, you've been convinced that it doesn't change your entire life. You know, you listen to fitness influencers go, oh, your slow metabolism's not an excuse. It makes no sense, right? We're the most adaptable species on the planet. You know, we've survived extreme heat. We've survived extreme ice ages. We've survived so much, and you believe that your metabolism is just one fixed number. Through feast and through famine, you think that your BMR can't adapt. And we know that that is not the case, because there is something called adaptive thermogenesis, in this space. Now, adaptive thermogenesis is where your body will adjust the amount of calories it's burning based on the environment, and that's based on what you're feeding it, that's based on your hormonal levels, it's based on the production of your thyroid, which determines your BMI, it's based on inflammation, it's based on a variety of things. Stress, everything. Everything is constantly altering this BMR rate, so your basal metabolic rate. So then what happens is your metabolism gets slower. So you think, I'm going to get there quicker through restricting myself more. But what's actually happening is you're going to get yourself there slower because you're slowing everything down and you're trying to grind your way there, which is never going to work, okay? And then through this approach, we get higher levels of inflammation. And then in the long term, that leads to health issues, which you can now see why that's not going to be productive for getting you to where you want to get to. Now, if we were to look at this from a nourishment point, through having a balanced and fulfilling diet, through training, not exercising, through prioritizing well-being, that's prioritizing your sleep, prioritizing your mental health, prioritizing your stress regulation. This looks like a healthy functioning metabolism. So you're going to be able to eat more food and lose fat at the same time because your BMR is healthier. Your body's not running on stress. Everything's able to function at the rate in which it should be. Your inflammation is lower, your health is improved, and as a byproduct, you're going to lose more fat in the long run. Okay? So there's this side of things when it comes to the metabolic side. The nervous system feeds into the metabolic effects. So does the psychology. Everything feeds into the physiological byproduct in which you're experiencing. So nervous system. I want you to take everything you know about fat loss. I want you to throw it out your head right now because quite frankly it's wrong. And one thing I want you to really visualize when it comes to this big word, punishment, is that your body and your nervous system is going to interpret it as threat. Now, you're probably thinking, that can't be right, that doesn't work, I'm not under threat, nothing happens, but your body is always changing and adapting based on the perceived threat in which you're taking in. Okay, and a good example of that is anxiety. You will get anxious, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure increases when you're anxious, despite the fact that you created your anxiety through your perception. So it's nothing to do with what's actually happening outside of you, it's the way in which you perceive it. So it's all running on a central nervous level through the way in which you perceive things. So if you are constantly restricting your diet, you're constantly trying to push high output upon it, and you view this as a punishment, as a process that sucks, that doesn't actually provide you with fulfillment and makes you feel miserable every single day, then through viewing that as punishment, you actually view it as threat. When something starts to be viewed as threat, your nervous system is going to then be put into something called the sympathetic state. So you can operate in one or two, you can be three states, one slightly worse, but we're going to make this simple for you. So you've got two states in which you can operate in, the sympathetic state and the parasympathetic state. So in the parasympathetic state, this is when your body is relaxed. It's going through normal biological function. You're digesting food, you're resting, your heart rate's low. Excellent. Your sympathetic's your fight or flight response. Now, this is where your body gets tighter. You feel your shoulders raise. It's where your digestion slows down. It's where your blood pressure is increasing because your cortisol is going up because your body is basically preparing for a fight or flight situation. Now, when you are viewing something as a threat all the time, what you don't realize is that you are constantly putting your body in that sympathetic state. It constantly senses that it's under stress because, for one, it is under stress because you're doing all of this heavy restriction, you're not feeding yourself enough. But two, on a psychological level, you're perceiving something as threat because it's punishing, and therefore your body's going to respond to that, right? Your body responds to thoughts. That's exactly how it works. So when your body's in the sympathetic state, we're going to link this back to physiology. You're running in a high insulin state because your body produces insulin when you're in a highly stressed situation for quick release of energy. And the problem with high insulin is you then store fat. So what you'll find is, and this is everyone that's on this punishment cycle, when you go through these intense periods of restriction and then maybe you binge or go on holiday, you probably find you put all the weight back on. And the reason for that is because your insulin was so high, because your body was so stressed, so then you stored it all as fat. So even though you didn't even eat that much food, you just breathed and you gained so much weight. That's because your body is in fat storing mode because your nervous system is dysregulated and knows that it's under stress. Okay? However, on the contrary, when your body is being nourished, your nervous system goes into the parasympathetic state. It's relaxed. It can go into normal biological function. Everything can go and work the way in which it's supposed to. Insulin lowers, we lose more fat because insulin is a fat storing hormone, okay? So this is the nervous system level. And then on the left-hand side, you've got the psychology. Now, all of these things intertwine because like I said, your psychology affects your nervous system affects your metabolic rate and your physiological side of things. But I want you to again, really view things quite abstractly and not the way in which you're used to viewing them. So again, I'm going to link you back to that word punish. And what punish actually does is it insinuates that you've got low self-worth. If you feel like you have to punish yourself to get something, you're basically saying, I'm not good enough to attain it, therefore I need to make myself even less so to maybe achieve that, which doesn't work. When you punish someone, you're basically saying you're not doing the right thing. It's like, I like the analogy of a dog. It's like smacking a dog on the nose when it's doing the thing in which you want it to do. It's going to stop doing that thing and therefore it's going to do the adverse of what you're trying to get it to do. Same thing, but you're doing it to yourself. The thing with low self-worth is then you're going to do more actions that are in line with that which is in your identity / self-concept. So everything you're doing is always derived from your identity, your self-concept. And your identity and self-concept is your intertwined web of beliefs, which for one is your narrative about the world, but it's also the narrative about yourself. And your body and subconscious mind is always doing everything it can to keep in homeostasis with that narrative. So if your narrative is, I am not worthy, guess what? Your actions are going to align with that. And the things in which you're going to manifest into your reality, you're also going to be in line with that as well, because you are what you attract. And the thing is with this then identity, is this then leads to eating disorders. If you think that everything is about restriction, moving as much as possible, you're going to run into eating disorders. You're going to run into binging and restricting. You're going to run into things like bulimia. You're going to run into this ridiculously unhealthy relationship with food, which governs your entire life, which is not what this is about. We want you to have food freedom. We want you to have flexibility when it comes to food, to enjoy different foods around the world and to enjoy the experience of food and not fear it. You know, food is fuel at the end of the day, and if you start to fear it, that's when it becomes a real problem. And then what this leads us into further is shame cycles. So we start to act adversely because of the results in which we're cultivated. So we start to feel even more shame, our self-worth gets even lower, and then this cycle kind of feeds itself. So then this also then goes back to the very top. You punish yourself more, self-worth goes down, and it's just this constant cycle of you getting yourself in the worst position possible, which is not productive to getting you where you want to get to. Whereas if you look at nourishment, like nourishment, you're actually honouring your body, you're doing it out of love. And that in of itself is always a better reason to do something. If you do something out of shame versus doing it out of love, you can see it on a physical level that's always going to be more productive. And even though you're doing the same thing, they're interpreted as different things and they have different outcomes. So let's say you're nourishing your body, you're loving your body, you're accepting of your body because you know that you need to feed it a certain way. And then what happens is you feel better about yourself. And when you feel better about yourself, your actions go in line with feeling better about yourself. And that means you're going to do more things. You're going to prioritize your sleep. You're going to manage your stress because you understand that you're better than that. You rise above the stress. And then that is then going to lead to a healthy relationship with, well, not only food, but with yourself. And when you learn to love yourself, you learn to let your body heal. Because when you love yourself, your nervous system is regulated. Because you're not running in this constant fight or flight state. You're not scared. You're not fearful. You're accepting of yourself. When you're accepting of yourself, you can forgive yourself. When you forgive yourself, you can grow, learn, and adapt. Okay, and that is why it's it's so important that you ask yourself, what side of this spectrum am I on? Am I punishing myself? Am I nourishing myself? And until we break out of this right here, and we go over into nourishing yourself, you're going to be in this constant cycle your entire life. And punishment works, but it works for a short period of time. You know, punishment works for, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks, which is why you see people do these fat loss challenges. They lose the best part of 10 kilos, 20, 25 pounds, and they put it all back on again. It's because it was punishment. And even on a subconscious level, they viewed it as punishment. But on the contrary, when we learn to nourish ourselves, we do everything out of an inner sense and place of love. When you do things from an inner place of love, your body will reciprocate that because your nervous system will be happier, your metabolic rate is going to be happier, you're going to be able to eat food, you're going to have a healthy relationship with food, you're going to feel better about yourself, and this creates a beautiful knock-on, a bit of positive momentum in your life because you understand that everything you're doing is to fuel yourself, to make yourself feel better, to give your body what it deserves, rather than taking it away because you don't believe that you're worth it and you deserve it. So it's really important that you ask yourself that question, you know, what am I doing? And then when you understand that maybe I am punishing myself, you can then start to nourish yourself. So then through eating more food, giving your body what it needs, its actual requirements, you will get yourself to where you want to get to. Your body's going to regulate itself. You're going to lose that fat. And I truly believe that fat is not only excess calorie, but it's actually the excess shame in which you're carrying around with you. And if you're constantly going through these cycles of punishing yourself, that's going to help that grow. It's going to make that grow further. And then, like I said, even on a nervous system level, if you're more stressed in that sympathetic state, you will store fat. So whether you want to look at this on an energetic level or on a physical level, they have the same outcome. They slow down your BMR, long-term health issues, you store fat. They all lead to the same thing. So we need to learn to love ourselves. We need to learn to fuel our body with what it needs. And when we can do that, that's really when you're going to build the body in which not only that you want, but that you deserve as well. So that's how you're going to do it. You're going to eat more food. You're going to eat more of nourishing food, which is going to help you fulfill your body. You're not going to fast. You're not going to do any of this restriction. You're going to eat enough of the right food. You're going to train, not exercise. And you're going to prioritize how you feel above all else. And when you prioritize those things, you will get yourself to where you want to get to. And if you want more help doing that, you want to work one-to-one with me, break you out of those old subconscious patterns which you found yourself in, fill in the application form at the top link in my description, and you can work through the process with myself directly. Okay? Much love. I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day.